engineers. But I think in the next 50 years we can get there. We can get to engineering. You might think, oh, that's exceptionally ambitious. 50 years? Yeah, well, let's think. It was about less than 100 years between Wright brothers getting what was essentially a motorized kite off the ground on a beach in North Carolina. And 7 people riding into space in what was essentially a variant of that motorized kite, the space shuttle, right? Same basic principles allowed that thing to land. It was an aerodynamic vehicle, okay? And of course, it was even less than 100 years between the time the Wright brothers flew that airplane and Yuri Gagarin of the then Soviet Union was the first man in space. That was closer to 50 years. So can we do this? Absolutely we can. Absolutely. Why not? Certainly it can't be any more complicated than that, right? And some of you in this room will be instrumental in making that happen if you take up the challenge to do it, right? How do we transform ourselves into a true form of engineering, right? That's, I think, a big challenge for us and again, a major opportunity. Okay, so some key themes here I would say from this talk. I see we're getting close to Q&A period, so try to have a deep understanding of these trends and where they're going, okay, and how they're gonna affect you. Again, we're in a global world, a global market. Right? Skills are going to trump location. Location matters to some extent. If you can't get there and you can't talk to somebody there, then of course they can't do the work. But that is the number of places that are like that are truly inaccessible is shrinking and will continue to shrink, right? So skills, differentiation of skills will trump location. Let's move towards becoming real engineers. Agree on best practices, build on our best work, work together, work collaboratively. Obviously, different situations require different approaches. That's part of being smart engineers as well. So I'm not calling for standardization like we all do everything exactly the same way, but standardization rather than having a core set of best practices that we know how to intelligently adapt to various situations. Make sure that you're ahead of these trends. Make sure that you're seeing them coming. Again, you know, as I said earlier, you can ride on them or you can get run over by them, right? And it's all up to you as to how you choose to respond to them. You can't stop them. All right, so conclude here before we go into the Q&A. We looked at 7 important trends. I think these are going to play out over the next decade and some of them beyond. So it's really a great time to be a tester, a great time to be a software engineer. Yeah, there's lots of stuff going on. There's lots of things to keep track of, but that's cool. This is an exciting, dynamic field, okay? As I said, you know, some of you in the room, hopefully all of you in the room, will take up the challenge of how to make this into a better profession, a more of a true form of engineering. That's a unique opportunity. Not many people get to be present at the birth of a new field. You know, that some people were in terms of aeronautics, right? But if you think about things like civil engineering, mechanical engineering, you know, the pace of change there is very slow now. What needs to be known to be a professional mechanical engineer or civil engineer, that's pretty much all known. This evolves, you know, materials evolve and so forth. There are some changes, but not the kind of dramatic, you know, revolutionary kinds of changes that we have happening to us in our field now. So instead of being scared by these trends and the rate of change, be thrilled by it, be excited by it. You have the opportunity to be present at the creation. Not a lot of people get to have that opportunity. And as a tester, you get to play a key role in this evolution of software engineering. What we're doing is important. It matters. Quality matters more and more and more because software matters more and more in people's lives. Okay? So you're doing something important. You're a pioneer, and you have an opportunity to leave a trail behind, right? Leave a contribution to this field. And I hope all of you will walk out of this conference and thinking about, how do I contribute more? How do I become a more essential part of where this field goes? You know, working together, working constructively with our fellow testers, our fellow software engineers, can make great strides. There's a lot to be done. So let's work together on that, better software testing profession. So I think we have time for some Q&A, is that right? Okay. Yeah, it's working.
Hello, yeah. Thanks, Rex, for the insights 2015. It's a very good insights. And I liked we are engineering, but we are not engineers. Hopefully my lightning talk today, what we can learn from spacecraft engineering will give some insights more on that.
Right.
My question is on what's the trends you see of this testing trends aligned with the industry? When I say industry in terms of the domain, be it a utility, banking and finance, or utilities, how do you correlate? Are these testing trends are in line? And again, you can say, is this a domain has impact? This drivers will take away in a different direction. Or let's say, agile is more suitable for manufacturing, just to give an example. So do you see any trends, how these trends are correlated with the industry? Is particular industry is adopting towards one particular trend? Or it's like anything, you can't really make it out like that?
That's an interesting question, and Agile is an interesting example. I think, 10 years ago, as Agile was starting to take off, there was a fairly widespread belief, both within the Agile community and also, especially outside of it, that it would be limited in its impact to certain circumstances, and it had certain enablers that would not be universally present. Now, some of the Agile thought leaders still think that way. So, for example, I was at a conference in Kiev in Ukraine last year, and Alistair Coburn was there, and he basically said, no co-location equals no Agile. So basically that would say any sort of distributed development work cannot be Agile. Okay? Now that obviously would cut off a whole lot of, really pretty much any sort of large-scale development that would be going on, because it's almost all large-scale development is now distributed, right? But I think for the most part, people disagree with that. And that Agile, or forms of Agile, are being applied in many situations, including those where some of the signatories of the Agile Manifesto would say they couldn't be applied. So I think these trends do actually transcend domains. I think some domains are stickier than others, in the sense they're a little more resistant to trends, a little more resistant to change. So, for example, regulated environments and defense work, security-related work, government, some types of secret government work, those will maybe be a little more resistant to some of the trends than others, just because of the nature of the work. But I think they're all affected by it directly or indirectly. So, for example, I talked to somebody a few years back about how the trend towards outsourcing was affecting his testing organizations in the United States. He was part of a defense contractor. Now, in order to work on his projects, you had to have a security clearance, which meant you had to be a U.S. citizen. So I speculated, well, perhaps outsourcing isn't actually having that big of an effect. And he said, no, it is, because it is affecting prevailing wages and the larger marketplace, and the defense contractors do align themselves with that larger marketplace. So even if a domain is insulated directly from one of these trends, it can't be insulated from the indirect effects of it. So I think that these trends will play out and transcend domains. Just in some domains, they'll be faster than others.
Alex, I got a question. I was referring to my friend. He asked question about agile sprint. Like it's a 2 weeks, right? And testing gets a very little time. And in response to that, you answered that we should adopt some best practices like automation. But we get hardly some time. I mean, I would like to say echo the same sentiment and pain that we get hardly very less time. So what is that exact you think that we should do in terms of resourcing or strategizing that within a limited span of time? So can you
Yeah,
do a
it's-
little more insight into that?
Well, it's a very common problem that what you have with Agile is a difference between the way it is intended to be implemented, the actual best practices of Agile, and what has actually been implemented. Now, in some cases, the difference between theory and practice is necessary and beneficial to all involved. In other cases, it's classic sub-optimization. By sub-optimization, here what I mean is that the developers get to do what they want and everybody else sort of pays the price for that. You know, as you described, as the gentleman over here described, of testing getting squeezed at the end. Okay? Now, that's not working. Right? That is that one of the promises that people make when they promote Agile is not only will it be faster, but the code will be better. Well, if the testing is being squeezed at the end and quality of the software being delivered is no better and in some cases worse, then you're likely to have a failed Agile implementation. That being the situation that the gentleman over here referred to, right? So it's important that the best practices of continuous code reviews and of good, thorough, automated testing at all levels of testing be in place, that testing be part of the estimation process so that when the size of these sprints is determined, it takes into account how much testing effort is required, not just how much development effort is required. That the definition of what it means for a user story to be done has to mean that all of the testing has been completed, ideally including the development of new automated functional tests for that piece of code. So really, we need to work with our colleagues to try to transform Agile from a developer-focused methodology to a software-focused methodology, focused on really the entire life cycle and all of the activities in it. But it's going to take a while. It's taken longer than I expected it to. I remember back when I wrote the second edition of Managing the Testing Process, one of my comments about Agile was that I thought that it would take us about 10 years, and that was in 2002. We are past that, and we're still not there. A lot of the challenges that I saw in 2002 are still existing, so it is taking a while, but we just have to keep at it. I mean, it's not like Agile's going to go away. You know, people want fast, so we have to figure out how to help them.
Thanks. I got one more question for you.
Okay.
Guess we are terribly short of time. We have to, Rex is here. What we have decided is that, assuming the size of the crowd, that we'll encourage questions, but that should not compromise with the schedule, because we have fantastic list of other speakers. So what I like is cut short the keynote here. Rex is around here till lunch. So feel free to continue the discussion inside the hall. Rex will continue to be here. So on that note, Rex, thanks for the keynote. Thanks for taking us through all the challenges that we are seeing in terms of technology. Also, thanks for letting us know about the numbers and encouraging software tester as a profession, which I believe is definitely going to stay. On that note, a warm round of applause for Rex.
Thank you.
Sorry if the questions couldn't be continued, but I hope you understand. We did allow 3 questions. There are a few more questions, a few more hands that were getting raised, but I'm sure Rex is here and he will be kind enough to answer all those. So, great. So, we had a 1-hour session, and instead of me starting with the conference overview, I thought, no, let's start with Rex, where he talks about software testing. And then I talk about the conference and how you can, take advantage of these 2 days. So my name is Nitesh. I am president of Next Generation Testing, which is about 5,000 testers, community from 3 different countries. So we have been organizing a conference in 3 countries, and last year about 850 delegates attended. And this year we have organized World Conference in Bangalore. There were many reasons why we chose Bangalore as a city to organize a world conference on testing. Rex gave you the figures, and there are other figures also from NASSCOM. So how many of you know